Joining me on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line is the general manager and executive vice president of the Detroit Lions. He is Brad Holmes. How are you doing, Brad?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, Rich.
Absolutely. Well, look who got Aidan Hutchinson in the draft. Look who got the Wolverine in the draft, but the guy who's generally managing for the hometown team. This is amazing, Brad. How psyched were you?
Oh yeah, it was just a great feeling. The whole organization is excited. Obviously this city, this community is excited to land him. But he's always been, even before this year, the first time I saw Aidan really was back in 2020 when I was still with the Rams actually, and he was kind of playing a different position. He was kind of playing more of an interior role, but I was just a huge fan of the player, and obviously he suffered the injury. But when I first saw him, he reminded me of Chris Long a little bit. And, I was with the Rams when, back when we drafted Chris Long. And the reason why that was such a unique comparison is because at the time back in, I think that was, 08, we're more of like a four-man front team. Defense, and Chris Long was running like a 34 at UVA. And so then we had to project him as kind of an edge guy, and so then you fast forward to Aidan, and, again, still with the Rams, I think Brandon Staley was running our defense at the time. We're running more of a 34 front at the time. And then we're like, man, this guy can really be a 5 technique, or he can be a bunch of different things. But then you see him in the next season, and he just shows a whole new toolbox that I was like, wow. And it just kind of it was an uptick in excitement and like for him. But really, really excited about him.
Well, I mean, it's only fitting that I hear sirens in the background when you talk about getting Aidan Hutchinson second overall, because I think it is theft and robbery, personally. Is it true, Brad Holmes? I heard that as soon as Travon Walker was named the first overall pick by Jacksonville, the Lions immediately selected Aidan Hutchinson and were told by the league to slow your roll because it was too fast. You put the cart in too fast. Is that true or false?
Yeah,
Brad?
And you know what, Rich? We actually, I actually tried to be more compliant with the rules because I know we kind of got slapped on the wrist last year with Penei Sewell. Mm-hmm. And I think it was really well documented that, the video and the uproar and the explosion and the excitement of just turning Penei's card in. So I actually thought I was more mindful of like, okay, all right, like how long do we got to wait for this? And I don't even remember what anybody said. And I guess I'm just calling. And then I just called. So I guess I just, unconsciously kind of violated again. But no, it was, once we saw that name, it was just, hey, let's call him. Let's make him a Detroit Lion.
Yeah, there's no use in waiting. I'm going to take the hit on that, Brad, to be honest with you, because as a host of the NFL Draft, I've done it 18 times. Nothing gums up our broadcast more than picks coming in too fast. We need the time to chew on what just happened and to ruminate on what's about to happen. And so the league knows that. And so they kind of make sure that the first couple of picks don't come so fast and furious that it happens too fast. I'll take the hit for you, Brad.
Well,
okay.
Totally understand. I'll keep that in mind. Hopefully we're not picking this high next year.
Exactly. So, when you're deep in the first round, Brad, and you're in that best player on the board argument, you can take your time. You know what I mean? You could just take your time,
Absolutely. Well, much respect to the process. I'll try to be in better compliance.
So then what was it like getting Aidan in the building for the first time? Walk me through day one and day one to the current day, Brad.
Yeah, it was fun because we just had him in, pre-draft. We had him in for a visit.
Yeah, and he was thrown out the first pitch at a Tiger game. I saw that.
Yeah, we just had him in for a visit right before the draft, and me, him, and Dan are just sitting in the office, in Dan's office, kind of just, talking about ball and life and all that stuff. And then fast forward, and then it's him and the rest of his family. They come in from Vegas, and we're like in the same spot. But it just did really feel like a good family atmosphere. we try to, kind of create that atmosphere here and create that environment. But it was good to have Aidan here. It was funny. I remember that I said he reminded me of Chris Long.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first saw him the year before, and I never forget the first time I met Chris Long, I was a combine scout, and he shows up to catch the train to catch the tram to go to the hotel from the airport, and he had a jug of water, like a gallon jug of water. And Aidan walks in the building after he flew from Vegas, and he's got a gallon jug of water in his hand, and I'm like, okay, I see a lot of similarities there.
Yeah, that might not be conditioning. That might be coming from Vegas, to be very honest with you, Brad. Just,
But no, it was good. He fit right in. It seems like he was a welcome addition. His guy comes from a great family, I met his parents before at the pro day actually. So it just seemed like all the stars aligned.
Executive EVP and Lions general manager Brad Holmes here on the Rich Eisen Show. First 10 picks go to the teams that had those choices. Pick 11 hits, and then Trade-a-Palooza starts with the Saints going up to get Chris Olave. Were you concerned when the Saints did that they'd go and get Jameson Williams? Walk me through that moment of the draft for you.
Yeah, that did cross my mind when the trade first happened. When the Saints moved up, we were pretty much set. We had already had dialogue with Kwesi in Minnesota, and I said, look, I'm still waiting and see what happens here. But when the trade first happened with New Orleans, I crossed them. I was like, oh man, because I heard a lot that they had some interest in Jameson throughout the process, and we have all that stuff that we look at. But I was looking back at it too, and same reasons that I went through the process that I went through with Jameson. I said, well, do they need somebody that can contribute right away? And whatever timeline it is with Jameson, that's what kind of made me step back. And I said, well, maybe they might not go that route, and they may need more immediate day one. And so that's what kind of gave me a little bit of that may give me a little bit more comfort. And but sure enough, they went Chris, and we were just ecstatic to get Jameson.
Did you try to pop into the top 10 to kind of lock in on that, or no? Right.
Yeah, well, I did make calls up there, obviously before, just to kind of see what teams' willingness was, because you just never know. Even with the agreement we had in place with Minnesota, it's still contingent on, you don't know if Minnesota could have a guy there that's like, no, we're not moving, and we're picking. So you kind of have to spread it around a little bit, and so we contact teams up there in the top 10, but obviously it worked out with Minnesota.
So then what's your evaluation? What was your evaluation of Jameson Williams and his knee to make you feel comfortable going up 20 spots? I mean, 20 whole spots to go grab him 12th overall, Brad.
Yeah, with Jameson, it was a really interesting process because we looked at him, obviously during the season, and the scouts, had high praise for him, and I had a good feel about him as a player. But when the injury happened, I self-admit that I put him in a box because I've always been a little bit, hesitant on, the guys that are projected to go really high to have that skill set that can be, a top-notch or game-changing kind of player. But, he had this ACL injury. And so I kind of had him from the time he got the injury all the way through, February and through March. I kind of had him in a separate box of his own. And I will never forget, I had a long kind of talk with myself. And I spent one Sunday, I was like, you know what, I'm actually going to take him out of this box. And I said, look, man, I gotta just put him on the same even playing field. And it actually reminded me of, I remember when Steve Kahn with the Cardinals, I remember when he made a a comment about when he drafted Kyler Murray. And, they had just invested the first-round pick in Rosen before, and I remember he made this comment about I was scared to watch the tape. Or he said something along the lines of I didn't want to watch the tape because I didn't want to fall in love. And that's kind of that Sunday, probably was about, 2 or 3 Sundays before the draft. That's kind of what my feeling was when I took Jameson out of that box. And I put him on the same level of the Ohio State kids and Drake London and all that. And when I took him out of that box, that's when I was like, whoa, this guy really – he was such a fit, and he was just clearing away the best fit as a potential game changer. And he just fit so many things of what Dan and myself are looking for. And that's when it kind of came very, very clear to me. Is like, let's go and get this guy.
Well, I'm sure you didn't go to WebMD to get your medical advice on him. So what's your 2 cents on when you're going to see him and how his knee is, Brad?
Yeah, so, obviously we had a lot of deep internal discussions before the draft with our doctors and our medical staff, and we felt very, very comfortable taking him. And we're not going to put a specific timetable just out of respect of our process and the plan that we have in place. But we feel very comfortable and confident in terms of where we think that he might be available. What I love about Jameson is he loves football. I mean, he's so passionate about the game, and he's chomping at the bit to get out there as soon as possible. But we do have a plan in place. We're going to stick to it, and the last thing we're going to do is just rush a player out there before he's ready.
So you're not going to tell me, is what you're telling me, Brad? You're not going to tell me? Okay.
Probably is about the best way to
Okay,
say it.
Understood. How about this year? We expect to see him in 2022? You have that level of expectation? Just at least that?
Yeah, I think it's. I would think that yes. I feel comfortable saying that I do expect to see him at some point this year.
Brad Holmes, the general manager of the Detroit Lions here on the Rich Eisen Show. So the quarterback spot in Detroit has been bandied about. Lots of talk about Goff in year 2 and what Dan Campbell thought of year 1 and what the group thought of year 1. You're sticking with Goff for a long term. Still up in the air, or that's your plan? Because you didn't take a quarterback in the draft, a rookie QB, Brad.
Yeah, we felt very confident going into this year as Jared being the guy to lead us at quarterback. But at the same time, we were open and we had, very transparent conversations about, look, if the right guy's there and it's the right fit, then we'll look into that. And I will say what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to force anything in terms of, we got to grab a quarterback, and if it's not the right fit, if it's not the right player, just still grab a quarterback. And we just didn't really have that feeling as we went through that process. Now, there was times in the draft where it was looking like it could have happened, but it just didn't. But at the same time, we didn't force it. We feel good about Jared, the way that he finished the year with all the adversity that he faced last year, the way he finished. And then Dan and I just wanted to make sure that he's set up for success, which, we try to do. We're still going to put in efforts to do going forward. But, and Jared knows, it's every year he's got to, come out here, compete, and prove that he's the guy. And but thus far in this offseason, he's done that.
Okay, so when you get your schedule, I'm assuming you haven't gotten it yet, even though you may have already gotten a peek. The first thing you look for is what when you get that schedule in your hands, Brad?
I usually look at week 1. I usually I look at week 1, and then I look at where the bye falls. That's really the 2 biggest things in terms of just being ready. Who's our opponent? I speak with Dan about it, and then you just look at the bye week, and then kind of when is that coming? Is it early? Is it late? And then, always for us, obviously, we don't have a lot of, let's call it primetime games, but, our Thanksgiving matchup is always a big one. So seeing that we have Buffalo on Thanksgiving. But, yeah, those are the three things I look for.
There you go. Buffalo. I mean, Thanksgiving, that's a big one for you, obviously, as to who you got there coming on Thanksgiving. So that's always a big one for you, Brad, I'm sure.
Yeah, when I got that job, that's the first thing I told my wife. She was so happy, and I said, Thanksgiving will never be the same, going forward, So, but it is, experiencing it last year for the first time. It is an awesome, unique experience, and looking forward to it this year.
It's very special. Before I let you go, Brad, in terms of occupational hazards at all, there's very rare physical occupational hazards, certainly when you're a general manager of a team. But when you pull off a trade like the one for Jameson Williams, or you get Aidan Hutchinson in your lap, second overall pick, and then there's Dan Campbell ready to celebrate, do you have to brace yourself? Do you have to set your feet like you're taking a charge? Walk me through that process, Brad, in the draft room.
Well, I will say Dan sometimes, he'll give me a little bit of a warning, a little bit. I'm often sitting next to him, and
right.
It's not a warning about what's going to happen, but he might say, hey, it got some hair standing up on the back of my neck, or I got so. Once I hear that, I'm like, okay, something could happen at any moment, but it's just. It is the best. It's the best feeling when he's excited, and we communicate about everything, and we make sure that we're making the right decisions on everything. But we're so aligned with everything. But it is a joy to see him get excited, and especially about when we get into player acquisition and make sure that the players that we're acquiring fits his vision and his philosophy. It is a joy to watch.
So you haven't had a moment, like say in your first two drafts in Detroit, like second round Friday night, you're like, why does that arm hurt? What's going on with the and like, oh, that's right, that was last night's first round pick. Like that, you haven't had one of those moments yet?
I haven't had one of those. Now,
okay.
I remember, last year with the Penei Sewell pick.
Yeah, right.
I believe it was our president seal, Rod Wood, that I kind of drug across the room. I don't think that would have happened with Dan. I think it would have been a little bit more force withstood.
You got to pick your spots, Brad. You got to pick your spots. I understand.
You got to pick your battle.
But I got to be honest with Campbell last year, Brad. It was obviously first year head coach. There were times where end of game scenarios might have gone a little fast and things of that nature. Those things happen the first year head coach. But one thing that you definitely saw, team never gave up. I mean, you might have been blown out in one game at home. I think it's the Eagles or something like that. But but everything else, never, ever, ever could put the Lions away and then ever give up. And they were always exciting. The games were always intense. And even when things, like I said, got a little out of joint in the first half, second half, different story. Never any quit. It was clear everybody was buying what was being sold. Brad, I wonder what your opinion of that is.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about Dan is, I've said from day one, there's just some elite traits that you have as a head coach, and those are one of them in terms of players believing, players buying in, and really wanted to play for him, and really willing to run through a wall for him, and that's always I've said a long time about if you go back to if you looked at our practices in weeks like 16 and 17, and you see we got a young roster, but even the more veteran players on our roster coming out in practice, and the energy in practice late in the season, we weren't playing for anything, it was incredible. And that's when you really know it's like, all right, you're cooking with some gas now, because you have a guy like Dan who these players love, they believe in, and he's so authentic in everything that he does, and it is and it equates to the games now. Yeah, we had the Philly, and you could even throw in when we played Cincinnati at home. But besides that, I thought that we kind of pushed everybody to the brink and gave them the game. And, you know, we want to lay a foundation of what we want to be about as a team, as a culture. We want to be a gritty group. And I do believe we got that foundation laid. And then we just got to keep doing our part. And we got to keep, you know, making sure the culture's right. We got to keep adding pieces and improving our roster and just control what we can control.
Brad, thank you for the time. Hope this is the first of many times calling into the show. Appreciate it. And let's chat down the road.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Rich.
Of course. Brad Holmes, the GM and Executive Vice President of the Detroit Lions, here on the Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.